speaker of today, Professor Jouke de Vries, who is Professor of Governance and Public Policy, but foremost also the President of the University of Groningen. And we are very happy that he wants to join us here, and he wants to say a few words, well, quite a few words, on the pros and cons of globalization. So it's a topic very close to him, and we're very happy that he's here. Jouke, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for this very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me, as President of the Board of the University of Groningen, to attend this kick-off meeting on illicit trade. My being here today signifies administrative and intellectual support for this interfaculty and interdisciplinary initiative. Illicit trade is one of the many negative aspects of globalization. And Professor Francesco Giumelli asked me whether I wanted to cut a ribbon or make a substantive contribution. I opted for the latter. So I asked whether I might be permitted to introduce the subject of illicit trade within the broader context of social phenomenon of globalization. And I was given the green light. Social phenomena always have positive and negative functions. When a new ideological idea emerges, such as globalization, in the initial phase, the positive functions are always endorsed. Only in subsequent phases do the negative functions of a social phenomenon come to the fore. And when the positive effects fade over time, doubts about the dominant ideology start to arise. But due to the lack of alternative theories, it continues to muddle along for a long time. My hypothesis is that the dominant ideologies work for about 30 to 40 years, after which they become worn out and obsolete. Globalization is hardly a new phenomenon. The world has seen it plenty of times before. Globalization means an increase in the ties between individuals, groups, organizations, and states. It means a growing number of interactions and increasing movement of people, goods, capital, and ideas. The first wave of globalization came in the wake of the expeditions undertaken to explore the world. It originated from what we call the Western world, from countries such as Spain, Portugal, England, and the Netherlands. The second wave of globalization occurred during the historic period of imperialism, around 1900, when the world was divided politically and militarily by superpowers. This, combined with a mounting nationalism, led to 2 world wars. The third wave of globalization began in the 1980s, during the 20th century. The invention of microchips and the emergence of the internet contributed towards its acceleration. Consequently, and as a result of continued technological innovation, connections between computers, individuals, and organizations grew exponentially, which in turn resulted in increased complexity and dependence. The IT revolution brought with it greater connectivity and integration, and of course, a more complex and uncertain world. A world which is confronted with risks and uncertainty. A risk involves at least some degree of probability. Uncertainty, however, means that there is no longer any probability of something happening. We have to deal with large open societal systems whose initial conditions are not defined, resulting in exponential rather than linear relationships This non-linearity and the highly complex nature of globalization leads to growing uncertainty in decision-making and weakness in governance. Collective action is becoming increasingly problematic, while the majority of the problems are playing out on an international level. The negative functions of globalization are only now starting to reveal themselves. After 40 years, they are dominating the political agenda. These negative aspects were always there, but the positive ones had the upper hand. The negative aspects were hidden from view. Ian Goldin and Mike Briatazam have written, years before the Corona crisis, an intriguing book with the title The Butterfly Defect: How Globalization Creates Systemic Risks and What to Do About it. Increasing complexity and integration are triggering systemic crises. Small changes can have major effects, but also defects. The authors give a number of examples. The first example, the 2008 financial crisis was a prime example of a systemic crisis that revealed a lack of preparedness on the part of governance for the series of problems that arose in the banking sector and spilled over into the real economy. The failure of subprime mortgages in the US affected many banking sectors in other countries because financial products were resold to each other. Something small, therefore, had a huge impact. But it was then that we realized that there was no governance structure in place to tackle such an international challenge. The second example, the coronavirus pandemic also highlights just how interconnected and complex the world has become. Although there is still much speculation about its origins, it was something small, a bat, at the market in Wuhan, which caused COVID-19 to spread at such tremendous speed. Due to the huge volume of flights around the world, the mass transportation of people and animals, the epidemic quickly evolved into a pandemic. Every country faced the same challenges. In the past, combating this disease was one of the reasons for establishing borders. Indeed, quarantine and distance were two of the tools employed during the pandemic. It is monumentally difficult to tackle this crisis internationally. The WHO seems powerless, and individual states are often incapable of managing the situation, and do so in very different ways. It is too early to identify the most effective strategy to combat the small virus. Both systemic crises revealed that globalization presents additional problems. We are currently seeing huge levels of inequality and dependence on industrial chains. The coronavirus pandemic even exposed our inability to make face masks. You are all here today to discuss illicit trade. Trade is at the heart of globalization and has been since the initial phase. But globalization also opens the door to illicit trade in products, in money, in people, in animals. Interdisciplinary research into this issue is to be welcomed. I congratulate the initiators of this venture and wish everyone every success. Thank you for your attention.